You've been conditioned to be kind, expressive, and emotionally open. But despite all that, you're still overlooked, ghosted, ignored, left questioning what you did wrong. The issue? You're playing a game that was never designed for you to win.
Today, we rewrite the rules. There's an unspoken code in human interaction. Beneath every polite smile and casual compliment exists a silent hierarchy, a primal structure. It doesn't communicate with words, but with posture, tone, presence, and most crucially, consequence. A man who understands this doesn't chase attention. He commands it. Not by force, but through gravity. Women don't respond to charm alone. They respond to the man who subtly takes command of his surroundings. He doesn't speak the language of approval. He speaks the language of power. True power isn't loud. It doesn't crave recognition. It's calm, silent, inevitable. It walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere. Conversations stall. Eyes linger. The air thickens. This is not the result of arrogance, but inner authority. A powerful man doesn't seek validation because he doesn't need to. His decisions matter. His silence carries weight. His presence is felt before he even speaks. And that energy, unpredictable and contained, stirs curiosity, especially in women. Why? Because certainty is rare. And certainty in a man is addictive. She wants to feel safe, not just physically or financially, but emotionally. She wants to be led, not dominated. She wants to trust a man who doesn't need her approval to feel whole. A man whose life is full with or without her. In his world, she must earn her place. This turns the dynamic on its head. Suddenly, she's not assessing if she wants him. She's wondering how to become chosen by him. Not because he flaunts status or wealth, though those things help, but because he has a clear direction, discipline, and deep control over his reality. He doesn't ramble to fill silence. He doesn't explain himself to gain favor. He moves like someone who knows where he's going, even if no one else sees the path yet. This is not about looks. It's not about being charming or smooth. It's about psychological gravity. A man can be handsome and still forgettable, but a man with presence, a man whose gaze feels like an X-ray, he lingers in her mind. He doesn't fidget or laugh nervously. He doesn't beg for space. He listens, not passively but sharply, calculating, unmoved. That man cannot be played. That man must be earned. And anything that must be earned becomes valuable. Too many men think attraction is built through constant compliments, emotional openness, or approval-seeking behavior. While those traits may be appreciated, they don't stir desire. They don't spark obsession. Women aren't drawn to men who follow them. They're drawn to men they can't fully understand. Men who could walk away at any moment, not because they're cruel, but because they're complete. Neediness repels. Self-possession seduces. Powerful men don't chase. And because they never chase, they become the ones who are pursued. The more you stand still, the more she leans in. The moment you stop needing her is the moment she starts needing your presence. This isn't manipulation. It's alignment. People instinctively respond to those who control themselves. You don't have to demand attention. You don't have to force attraction. You simply become so centered, so self-directed, that the world shifts around you. Even she does. Because while wealth and charm can open doors, they cannot replace the effect of quiet, unshakable inner authority. That's the rarest currency of all. And women, whether they admit it or not, feel it on a cellular level. They test for it. They crave the tension it brings, the balance of danger and security. And when a man can walk away without hesitation, because he lives by something greater than her approval, that's when desire finds him. Not by chance, but by nature. Rule 1, scarcity over saturation. Desire doesn't flourish in abundance. It grows in absence. The human mind is drawn not to what's always available, but to what it cannot fully grasp. Scarcity is one of the most potent psychological tools in attraction. Yet most men throw it away. They become too available, too accessible, too eager. And in doing so, they drain themselves of the very value that would make them wanted. What's always present becomes invisible, predictable, dull. But when something disappears without warning, when it's hard to access, the mind starts to spiral. Craves resolution, closure, possession. This isn't just emotional, it's psychological. We idealize what we can't have, and we chase it with far more intensity than what's in reach. Scarcity triggers the imagination, and imagination is far more seductive than reality. A woman doesn't lie awake thinking about the man who replies in seconds, constantly offers himself, and is always available. She thinks about the one who appears briefly, says little, and then vanishes. The man who creates space for wonder, he's unforgettable. He doesn't need to speak often. His absence speaks for him. His unpredictability injects tension into her thoughts. Where is he? Who's he with? Is he even thinking about me? These questions haunt her, not because he's trying to create chaos, but because he's not trying at all. Scarcity creates a void, and the mind rushes to fill that void with fantasy. The more she imagines you, the more obsessed she becomes. Men often mistake constant presence for loyalty, but constant presence reveals one thing above all else: need. And nothing kills attraction faster. A man who's always around tells the world he has nowhere else to be, that his time is cheap, that his attention is easy, and what's easy is never prized. Scarcity, on the other hand, suggests you have abundance elsewhere, that you are busy, fulfilled, chosen, and that she must qualify to enter that space. Suddenly, the tables turn. Now, you're not the one chasing value. You are the value. She has to work for it. And the more effort she puts in, the more deeply she becomes emotionally invested. Once that investment is made, detachment becomes difficult. Now, she's not just interested, she's entangled. Scarcity doesn't mean ignoring her completely. It's a strategic rhythm. Appear just long enough to leave an impression, then fade. Let her imagination carry the rest. Your presence is not a buffet, it's an exclusive offering. Not always available, and not given freely. This is how obsession is born, not through overload, but through subtle, deliberate restraint. Rule 2, let silence speak. We live in an age obsessed with connection, texts, notifications, constant interaction. But human psychology hasn't changed. Ancient instincts still rule beneath the surface, and silence remains a weapon. A man who doesn't jump to respond, who delays replies, who seems to move in his own time, not hers, becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability breeds desire, not because he's playing games, but because he's living life on his terms. She isn't the center of it, she's orbiting it. You become the sun, and she works to stay in your gravity. When you master the art of absence, you stop having to prove anything. You don't need to chase or explain. Your silence becomes more valuable than another man's constant words. And every time you return, it feels like a reward, not a routine. She's no longer being pursued. She's the one pursuing, not because you told her to, but because she simply can't help it. You've become something she can't reach fully, and what we can't possess becomes unforgettable. Rule 3, own the frame. Every moment between a man and a woman is a quiet negotiation of power, not through brute force, but through the control of the frame. The frame is the context, the lens through which the interaction is interpreted. Whoever defines the frame controls the meaning. A weak man walks into a conversation trying to win approval. He adapts, he reacts, he adjusts himself to fit her expectations. Without knowing it, he's entered her frame. He's surrendered leadership before the dance even begins. From that point forward, he is not directing, he's following. And women do not surrender to men who psychologically submit. They're drawn to the one who stands firm in his own reality. The man whose perspective is so grounded, she wants to join it. Frame isn't about what you say, it's about what you believe. It's energy, certainty, conviction. A woman will push. She'll challenge, not always to argue, but to test. She wants to see if she can shake you. If you bend to her emotional storms, she knows you're not grounded. If you let her set the pace, control the narrative, define the boundaries, you've already lost control. You've become a guest in her world. A man who owns the frame doesn't panic. He doesn't over-explain. He states calmly. He sets the rhythm. He moves with authority, not aggression, but certainty. A solid frame doesn't push, it pulls. It invites surrender without demanding it. And when surrender is voluntary, it turns into desire. She follows not because she must, but because she can't resist the presence of a man who leads without needing to dominate. And that, in the end, is what makes her stay. Rule 4. Let her feel the uncertainty. When she stirs emotional chaos, meet it with stillness. A calm gaze, few words, and unwavering presence. This forces her to reset. In that moment, she realizes she's not in control of the emotional dynamic. Your refusal to be disturbed becomes its own form of communication. You're not reacting, you're unmoved, and that makes you impossible to ignore. Leadership in a relationship, much like leadership in the world, is not handed over. It's taken by those who dare to set the rules. If you're not defining the interaction, you're being shaped by it. If you're not setting the emotional tone, you're reacting to hers. Women don't lose interest in assertiveness. They lose interest in hesitation. The man who looks for permission to speak, to act, or to walk away when disrespected has already stepped beneath her. Not because she forced him there, but because he gave up his ground. Strength of frame begins from within. You can't pretend to have it. Women sense when confidence is staged, and they'll press until it breaks. But when a man speaks with clarity, stands relaxed, and doesn't blink at resistance, something shifts. She begins to adapt to him. Her world starts to orbit his. This is the moment where desire transforms into submission, not by force but by psychological weight. Even without words, the dominant frame holds. A man who can sit comfortably in silence shows he's not ruled by insecurity. A man who listens calmly, without leaping to respond, shows he owns his emotions. And a man who disagrees with confidence, without needing approval, reveals that rejection doesn't shake him. These subtle signals of inner control speak louder than any rehearsed line. He doesn't just lead the conversation. He becomes the reference point, the standard. She finds herself comparing others to him. She questions why his presence lingers long after he's gone. His reality is firmer, clearer, more rooted than hers. And in a world full of emotional chaos, a grounded man becomes magnetic. In the quiet war of attraction, the most compelling man isn't the one who drowns her in affection. It's the one who remains centered, composed, unshaken. His emotions don't flood the room. They sit behind the wall, disciplined, measured. This is not coldness. It's strategy. Most men reveal too much too soon. They mistake vulnerability for power. They think emotional transparency will create connection. But instead, it destroys the tension that desire thrives on. A woman's attraction isn't built from full access. It's built from the unknown. She wants to feel. She needs highs and lows. But when a man exposes every feeling up front, he becomes predictable. The mystery dies, the chase ends, and she turns her attention elsewhere. But the man who looks her in the eye and reveals nothing, he becomes an enigma. She can't read him. She wants to crack him open. She starts investing, emotionally, mentally, hoping to find what's hidden beneath the surface. That's how obsession forms. He never rises too high or drops too low. If she pulls away, he doesn't chase. If she tests him, he doesn't flinch. If she breaks down, lashes out, or shuts off, he remains still. Not because he doesn't care, but because he governs himself completely. This inner calm is what separates men she remembers from the ones she forgets. A woman is drawn to emotional strength, not loud passion, but steady self-command. And when a man no longer reacts on impulse, when he stops relying on her approval to feel balanced, she starts to question her own grip on him. And the more unsure she feels, the deeper she falls. Rule 5. Make her earn her place. The real currency of power in a relationship is not affection. It's perception. Make her feel like she's the most cherished woman you've ever known, while quietly reminding her she's not the only one who could have held that position. This paradox, exclusive yet replaceable, is the sharpest blade in seduction. It creates emotional urgency, keeping her invested, uncertain, and hooked. Most men swing too far in either direction. Some offer endless praise, constant reassurance, and pour their attention into her like it's a gift. They worship, they cater, and they get discarded. Why? Because their devotion holds no tension, no challenge, no intrigue. Others go cold, emotionally distant, detached to the point of dullness. This may spark curiosity at first, but without a sense of specialness, she'll move on to someone warmer. But the man who walks the razor's edge, the one who treats her like royalty while never making her the center of his universe, he captures her completely. She feels like the chosen one, but she knows she's not the only one who could have been. That uncertainty breeds effort. She starts trying, competing, reaching for something that never fully sits in her hands. You don't need to be cruel. You need to be calibrated. You give attention, but not all of it. Compliments are rare but deliberate. You admire her beauty, but not like you're starstruck. You show desire, but never desperation. You offer time, but never on demand. This is how you become unforgettable. Not by drowning her in affection, but by offering just enough to leave her wanting more. Let her see your life in motion, filled with purpose, people, and pursuits beyond her. Let her feel your presence as something earned, not entitled. When she knows your world doesn't revolve around her, she has a reason to keep proving herself to stay in it. Even in closeness, make your autonomy clear. You enjoy her company, but you don't need it. You feel love, but it doesn't blind you. You remain emotionally centered, not because you're distant, but because you are sovereign. That's the difference. You are the core, and she orbits around your gravity, not the other way around. In public, let your demeanor speak. If she sees you handle attention with ease and speak with calm confidence, she senses your value is recognized by others. If you talk about your past not with regret, but authority, she understands women have wanted you, but none have mastered you. If you live with discipline, standards, and emotional restraint, she feels that her access to you is earned. And what's earned is never taken for granted. Over time, this truth settles into her subconscious. She's striving to remain in your world. She wants to keep your attention, not because you demanded it, but because she senses you could disappear and not flinch. That thought doesn't terrify her, but it drives her. It fuels her desire to stay worthy of you. This isn't manipulation, it's perception. You're not threatening her. You're not rewarding her. You're simply living in a way that says, I am whole and I will remain whole with or without you. And yet, because you treat her with care, elevate her without dependence, and give her the experience of being chosen, she's compelled to stay. She doesn't want to lose the man who sees her, values her, but never needs her to feel complete. In a world where most men are taught to chase, to please, to prove their worth, you must walk a different path. You don't seek validation. You become the force that draws it. The man who sets the tone, defines the context, and remains composed even in silence. He becomes unforgettable. Not because he tries to impress, but because his energy commands attention. His absence lingers. His approval carries weight. You've now seen the hidden architecture of power in relationships. These are not pickup lines. They are psychological realities. How tension, uncertainty, scarcity, and inner authority work together to spark attraction, fuel desire, and sustain obsession. The man who leads without force, who defines without explanation, who feels without being consumed, that is the man who captivates. Not by manipulating, but by mastering himself.